Alrighty guys, welcome back to another LEGO set review from BrickByBrick, and today we have set number 79110. This is the LEGO Lone Ranger Silver Mine Shootout, containing 644 pieces, $469.99, with 5 minifigures, of which 4 are exclusive, and the 5th one is uncommon. And this set contained 2 instruction booklets, and was released back in 2013 as part of the pretty small one-off Lone Ranger theme, which I didn't get this back when it was out. I recently got it on eBay, used for $46, which was a pretty good deal. And I did also get a couple other Lone Ranger sets too, which I'll be seeing reviews of in the coming weeks. The only side build here that really isn't attached to the model, like completely, it has no like specific attachment points. Obviously, you'll stick it onto this train track, which we will take a look at with the rest of the model later. But we just have this simple little minecart, and the way this is built is kind of interesting. It uses this Fabuland chest piece, which has not been used since this set. This is the last time it was ever used, and it's an interesting part. The whole thing is built upside down, so this is studs up direction, and I think that it looks pretty good, and it works reasonably well on the tracks. You can push it back and forth on the 4 wide section. Obviously, it doesn't just fit on regular train tracks, but they do use regular train tracks in this set, and then just attach this long kind of rack gear sort of piece, and it will slide around. It's a little bit less kind of locked in place than regular trains, and it does kind of want to tilt up a little bit sometimes because it doesn't have much weight to it. But, unfortunately it doesn't have any studs on the inside, so you can't really sit a figure up in there perfectly. They'll kind of want to fall down eventually, especially when you use the action feature that this goes with, which we'll see later. But in addition to just being there, it has these 2 silver bar pieces, which are in that metallic lacquered silver, which is a cool color, and you get 2 of them in this set, and I believe those have only appeared in Lone Ranger sets to date. So this set has a lot of things going on with it. So we're going to start from the ground level, we're going to turn it around, and then we're going to just keep going up level by level until we've covered the whole thing. And right here, the most kind of eye-catching thing immediately is this train track, which creates like a tunnel, and this isn't really something that they do very often in like official LEGO sets. There is something blocking it on the other side, so you can't just like take this and stick train tracks on both sides and make it work. But it is kind of a cool concept, and you could kind of mess with it a little bit until it works properly with just regular trains. You won't be able to do anything with super wide trains. This isn't really meant for trains in the first place, but if you have anything wider than this point here, it will kind of get stuck there. But you could probably modify this and make it work somehow. We do have this up here, this keep out sign to tell you to not drive your actual trains down there. And that is just done with a sticker, but it works pretty well. And this minecart does fit. It's designed to fit on these inner rails, which are extra attached pieces, but these extra attached pieces won't mess with like regular train wheels if you were just to put a regular train on the outer actual train track parts. And we'll go over this direction first, where we have this little waterfall. This is done with a vinyl plastic piece, and it does split down the middle, so you can take a figure and walk right through it, and it works fine. It's a little bit hard to actually get your fingers in there, and sometimes you'll push it out of the way and it will get stuck on the stuff behind it, so you kind of have to push it and reset it back into place. But the actual printed design on there is pretty respectable. Looks okay. And right in front of it we have a little bit of a river sort of thing going on, where you do have some metallic silver studs underneath these transclear tiles, so you can sort of see the silver at the bottom of the river, which is a big part of the Lone Ranger movie. So that is kind of important. It wasn't really like at the silver mine in the movie, but it is kind of cool to get this little additional area. You do have a little bit of greenery out front, but not too much, so it still looks like a desert. And if we turn it around to this side, we can see up on the second level, there's this continuation of the top of the waterfall. We will come back to that in a second, but underneath that, we have this little room behind the waterfall where there is a bunch of silver. And you do have a couple of silver studs as well as 3 of these crystal pieces. Metallic silver, which is not super common. I remember the first one I ever got of these was in the Queen from the Cars 2 Big Bentley set, and that was in silver, and I thought that was a cool part. And now this set has 5 of them, and the rest of the Lone Ranger sets do have a good amount of them. It's not super common outside of those, though. And moving back here to the back of this thing, we do have this little play feature, which you just are able to push that in, and if you have your minecart pushed all the way back here, which we've got Tonto sitting in there, but if you have it pushed there like that, and try and get him to sit up as much as possible, just so you can see what happens when we do push it. But if we flip that, he'll go kind of flying, and he fell out of the minecart. But that is a cool action feature, and we will see that in combination with this in a little while. You have a lantern here. There are 4 of these lantern builds that are pretty much all exactly the same, scattered throughout the set, and that's just one of them. And there's another clip over here, which you could clip an accessory to, but there's nothing clipped to it in the instructions. Over here we just have this relatively empty room, which you can access just by walking under here. And in here there's a little bit of dynamite, and that dynamite actually has a action feature to go with it. There's this barrel out front, which we will see again from the other side, and if you push that, it will just knock down this wall like the TNT blew up. And in there is just a little bit of silver, 1 more of those crystal pieces, and a metallic silver stud, and that is on the inside of one of those big ugly rock pieces, which we'll see from the front. So, taking advantage of the space that is inside there is pretty good, and that's a nice, really simple little feature. So nothing super crazy there, and if you close that up, it looks pretty good. If you open it up, it looks pretty good, and you can't really see the action feature too much aside from maybe just that one tiny little Technic bushing. But with modern pieces, now that they have those 2x2 round tiles with a hole in the middle, you could just use that, and it would allow the barrel to spin freely without, just since that part didn't exist yet, they had to do this instead. And here we are back at the front of the model, and just so you can see, if we turn it this way, we move underneath the wooden post built up scaffolding area, and this is that little side cave. This is how you enter into the area with that explosion feature, so your minifigure would just walk right under here, and you kind of have to grab around. It's hard to get your hands straight like that and kind of stand them up right in that center spot, but it works, and you can get your figure through, and it's definitely believable that a figure can get through there. You do have 1 more of those lantern builds here on the side, and over here we have a hinge brick with one of these ladder pieces, which isn't super common in just regular brown, and your figure can sort of climb up there, and you can kind of slot their feet in one thing of there. Obviously it would look more believable if we didn't have stuff in his hands, but that's how your figures would climb up here to this second little layer here, and I just have one of the guys standing here next to this catapult, which just catapults off dynamite in its default location. It's sort of like right underneath this this lantern, so you kind of want to make sure that you turn it out of the way so you don't just hit that, but it catapults stuff off fine, and it just turns around pretty smoothly. And this here is the barrel, which activates that kind of wall explosion feature, so you push that, and then this opens up here. One thing that's a little bit different about this area is just that there is a lot of open space right here. Kind of feels a little bit empty, but maybe it would have been nice to get a little bit of rock work just coming into this side, but I think it looks fine. And you have this one support piece that just holds up the little cabin, which we'll see in a second. In the front, they do a good job building up the rock work for this front section here. I like the way, the shaping of it, and how they use different colors to kind of get a pretty good design going. And there is one lantern hanging up there. And now if we move over here to the side, we're going to swing this out of the way. We will see that in more detail later. But over here we have one of the most interesting play features in this set. We have this dynamite here, right? If we remove it, there's just a hole. But we stick this dynamite in and push this Technic activator over here, and it will cause this small ugly rock piece to kind of burst out, and the dynamite ends up here. But it's that's a really interesting action feature, because the other thing that is cool about that is if you don't put the dynamite in, it's not going to do anything. You need to load it with the explosive, and just the fact that, because you have to go in, you got to load the explosive up, and then, and only then, will it blow up. That one actually worked well because the dynamite knocked itself out of the way too. But I like that, and, that allows your figures to maybe find this area, maybe go down to it in the bucket that we'll see later. You turn it around, and you kind of let yourself come down here, and then you'd be able to walk into this entrance. And what is on the other side of that entrance? Well, it's just another little cave with some more silver in it. And you got a fifth one of these crystal pieces, which there are 5 in the set, which is a pretty good amount. And then you got a couple other silver studs here, and some under the water as well, which the water is the same kind of design as what is below. And there is a little bit of a gap there where the waterfall would go down. So, you could imagine your figure sort of falling down the waterfall, but you sort of have to do that with your imagination because there's not actually a large enough gap for a figure to slide down. It's less than 1 stud wide. This next section is elevated up yet again. We're on the 3rd level now, basically. There's really nothing in this empty space here at all. Like, there's a little bit of space maybe right there in between the slide and that, but that still connects to this other cave. So up here in this top layer, we have sort of a weapon or tool storage area, and that is the backside of the second big ugly rock pieces in the set. And there's just a barrel which has nothing in it, and a bottle, and over here we have a pickaxe and a shovel, and both of those are relatively common parts. But if you want to make a getaway from your little secret storage area, you can come right through here, which this is a little bit hard to get through this area with your figures, but once you do, you kind of just slide down there, and if you have it all positioned up properly, then you're able to take your minecart, which is right over here. You roll it in here maybe, and I guess you could do this with the silver as well. So maybe you have silver up here that you're storing, and you can just slide it down, and it will sort of usually end up in there. With smaller pieces, sometimes it doesn't work as well, but with figures, I guess maybe it will work better if he's sitting down. He's got less space, and sometimes it will land in here, sometimes it'll roll over it. But basically, once you get it rolled in there, you can just push that and slide him out, and he's made a getaway. So that's kind of cool. And I guess here's a little bit of a better look of what the inside of the tunnel area looks like. But that is pretty much all for that area. Moving up here to the inside of this little house or cabin, we have what looks to be a stove with 2 of these frying pan pieces, and over here, I guess maybe that's, I don't know what this is supposed to be, but this over here is like a furnace or a stove or something, where you're heating up a coffee pot, and that's an interesting build. This is an R2-D2 astromech body in black, and have a little pipe that kind of would send smoke out through the top, and yeah, but it's a pretty small, detailed, good-looking area. This right here is part of an action feature, which I'm going to have to turn around to the front in order to show you what it does. And here we have the top of the ladder, by the way, which makes it look like you would enter through this doorway, but then that's kind of where you think it's going when you're building the set, and then you put this stove in the way. So you really can't access it through this doorway, but that's just kind of a minor nitpick. I guess your figure would go out here and then walk around, and you'd imagine that there would be a little bit more space back here, which maybe it would have been nice if they just included an extra 2x8 plate, and that would have allowed you to pose more figures up in this area, as well as, actually have a believable way for them to get in. But that's a minor nitpick. And on the front, we do have a window here with these shutters, which you can close. You just have to turn the cow head out of the side. But speaking of that action feature, it allows you to shoot out this cow skull, and if you do it with more force, it will kind of go flying. But this is a relatively uncommon part that I think that was introduced in the original Western theme, but maybe it's been updated since then. I don't really know. You can sort of see into that little weapon area behind this big ugly rock piece, and up on the roof of this little room, there are a couple of stickers just showing some wood plank detailing. And here we have the final level area, and there's a little bit of standing space for minifigures up here, but we'll remove them out of the way. Here we have this little crane thing which allows you to pick up this bucket, and the one complaint I have about this bucket is just that it's hard to get figures to kind of be in there, because putting one in there will kind of counterbalance the bucket, and you kind of have to do it with your imagination, I guess, in order for it to work properly, because they are really too heavy. But you could store other small things in there, and you could maybe mine some silver up here in the top area, and then load it in the bucket, and then bring it down to the ground safely. That probably the better way to make this work, but you do have a good range of motion with it, and the string is pretty long, will allow you to get pretty much all the way to the ground, I believe, but we can test that theory. And see, let's see, how close can we get? Yeah, it looks like you have a fair amount of room, and there we are, all the way down to the ground, and there's still extra slack left, so you got plenty of string, more than you need. And, you know, it allows you to reach out pretty much as far as you want. You can even raise this and lower it to kind of change where you're angling. The default angle is probably best for most situations, but, you know, again, it gives you the options that you need. Back up here, we do have this interesting feature, which allows a unsuspecting bad guy to kind of fall if you pull that out. And I guess from there, this bad guy is still able to escape, but, you know, that is an option. And, you know, you might be wondering why it's able to turn. That really doesn't help it to open and close the trap door. But if we were to go like this and lift it up, what it does is it will launch that boulder off, and you can get that boulder to go flying, really, and it works pretty well. There's nothing inside that boulder or anything, it's just a boulder piece. But if we do that, it will go flying really far, and it will split open, which a lot of the features that I've seen done with these boulder pieces do not get them to split open. This one does. This one works really well, I think, and I'm happy with this little play feature, and works pretty well. But that's pretty much all there is for this top area, and, you know, it's just got some rock work, nothing too crazy, but overall I think that the action features in that area do work pretty well, even if it doesn't have too much else going on. Our first two minifigures are the mine versions of the Lone Ranger and Tonto, and these two characters are in all of the Lone Ranger sets, I mean, except for the smallest one, which only has the Lone Ranger and doesn't have Tonto. But both of these variants are exclusive to the set because they're both dirty and, you know, covered in silver dust from the mine. And they actually have all exclusive prints. I mean, they don't reuse anything except for, I guess, the headgear pieces, which those headgear pieces are kind of cool. This was a new mold for a hat for the Lone Ranger, and, you know, it's been reused since in various occasions. And obviously Tonto's headgear was a new mold. And if you don't know how this little crow piece works, that just attaches to the top via a mini peg hole, and both the print on this and, you know, the Lone Ranger's hat are just, you know, the same as in all the other sets, but they look pretty good. However, they both get new torso prints, which you can see the dust and dirt on them, and if we turn them around to the front, you can see the printing for the dirt and stuff on the fronts of them. And Lone Ranger has a new face with a different facial expression, as well as a little bit of dust on his mask, and Tonto has two new faces, which you can see some of the paint is sort of worn off his face, and there's some dust and dirt on there, and an alternate expression as well, which both of the expressions for these characters are pretty good. You know, would maybe have been nice to get them without dirt, but honestly the dirt doesn't, like, you could use this on the non-dirty version of Lone Ranger, and, you know, it wouldn't be that noticeable, and, I mean, they're in the desert, so there's dirt all the time. As far as accessories go, Tonto gets his tomahawk, which is a pretty uncommon part, and then Lone Ranger gets those Lone Ranger pistols, or revolvers, and he's got two of those in the flat silver color, which I'm pretty sure he has in every single set from the wave. Next up we have Chief Big Bear, who is exclusive as a character to this set. Aside from Tonto, there are only two other Native American characters portrayed in the Lone Ranger sets, and he's one of the two. The other one is in the $20 like Comanche set, but this one is exclusive to here, and this is Chief Big Bear, and he's got an exclusive hair mold, which is kind of cool. And his torso print and face print are also brand new as well. He does have a quiver on the back and a bow and arrow, which I don't remember if he used that in the movie, but regardless, it's a decent accessory to give him. And if we were to remove the hairpiece, you can see it is a rubbery hairpiece, so you can kind of bend these and they won't break off, which is a good thing. but it's done in gray, and I think that this dark brown is just painted on, but it might be dual molded with two different types of rubber. I can't quite tell. If it is dual molded, that's kind of advanced for this time, but the white is definitely just painted on. The face print for him is really, really good, actually. It looks like the character in the movie, and he does have an alternate facial expression as well, and that alternate face is also pretty good. It's a little bit more scared, but it's there and it works. And just to frame that up with the hairpiece, again, looks pretty good. And the torso print for him is a little bit simpler than some of the other characters in the set, but that's not saying too much because the other characters all have some pretty detailed printing. And if we turn that around, you can see he does have a little bit of back printing, which is hidden by the quiver by default. And the two bad guys that we have in the set are Kyle and Butch Cavendish. And Butch is not exclusive to the set. He's the only figure in the set that isn't. But the only other set that he comes in is the Constitution Train, which is more expensive than this one. So this is still the cheapest way to get him, which, you know, it's a good thing that he's in multiple sets, I think, at least in my opinion, just because he is a really, really detailed and really well done figure. Kyle is exclusive as well to the set for his torso and leg print. His face print also appears in the smallest of the Lone Ranger sets, but it's only in those two, so we'll see that up close when we remove his little bandana. Butch has this new special hair hat combo mold, which is pretty cool, and it's got two colors. I believe the dark brown is just printed or painted on there, not printed, but it is still quite cool. And the face print is pretty neat. On the one side, he's got that facial hair, and on the other side, he's shaved. So that's kind of cool. And the Indiana Jones hat is used for Kyle here. And if we remove the bandana, we're able to get a look at the face print, which is pretty cool. And his torso and legs are also kind of generally usable parts, so it is nice to get them here, but they are exclusive. So Butch does have the gunmetal gray version of the Lone Ranger's pistol, and then Kyle has one of these rifle pieces in dark gray. Overall, I was actually pleasantly surprised by this set. It was something that I thought was pretty decent looking, but it actually was a lot better than I was expecting. It's bigger, and it has a larger presence on display than I was expecting. The figures are actually cooler than I was expecting them to be. I didn't think that they'd be such an interesting part of the set. And it just has some really cool action features and stuff that I haven't seen them do as well as in this one, like that really awesome TNT feature here over on that side. The other one, you know, is a fine TNT feature, nothing crazy about it, but that one is really cool. And just overall, I think that this is probably one of the better Lone Ranger sets. I thought this was going to be a lower half one. Of course, there are only 6, so, you know, it's not too hard to be in the top or bottom half, but, you know, I do think that this is one of the better ones, and I'm glad that I didn't just skip over it like I was originally going to. Obviously, I skipped over all of them in 2013, but, you know, when I started buying a couple Lone Ranger sets, I was considering maybe I'll just get the train in the city, and maybe the stagecoach, but, you know, I saw a good deal on this, and I bought it, and I'm definitely glad that I did. It actually isn't that crazy expensive nowadays. Like, sealed ones are still around 100, so, you know, that's not too inflated over the original price. I think that if this is something that looks cool to you, it's probably not too bad to spend that money. And if you want a used copy, you can find one of those for like 60 to 80. I got really lucky with this one, and I guess if you keep an eye out, then you might get pretty lucky too. So, you know, I would definitely recommend that if you are interested in it. And I definitely think that if you do go out of your way to buy this, I don't think you'll be disappointed unless you spend like over $100. I think maybe might be kind of where I would put the cutoff there. But if you can get it for 100 or under, I think that it is a pretty cool thing. So, hope you guys enjoyed this little review. If you did, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye, everyone.